Eyes on Longmont, offering a diversity of topics about our community that will inform and entertain you. We invite you to sit back and enjoy this edition of Eyes on Longmont.
Hello and welcome to the Greig Steiner Gallery. I'm Greg and I welcome you to the studio in Estes Park where we've had our business for 60 years now in Estes, and would love to have you come in and look at the collection. Hi, my name is Greig Steiner. I live in Estes Park, Colorado. Originally, I came from California, where I was a designer in the theater and went to school at the Pasadena Playhouse, which is California's official theater school, where I got my degree, and worked in the theater for a little over 10 years solely, until when in 1959, a friend of mine who lived in Longmont called me and asked me if I'd come to Colorado and be his art and technical director for a summer theater that he wanted to build in Estes Park, Colorado, which I'd never heard of. And I said, well, it depends on the season. I've got 5 theaters I designed for in California. And so I have to be in California until they close in June. And then I have to be back in September. So I said, well, that's fine. We aren't going to open until the 4th of July and we close on Labor Day. So I got in my car and came to Colorado, and we ran the Dark Horse Theater for 4 years. We did a new show every week, not rotating shows, but a new show every week, including musicals, operettas, plays, comedies, melodramas, all kinds of things. And so we did 9 shows every season in 3 months, end of June to July, August, and in the first week of September. So we were very busy, and I was doing all of the artwork. I designed the sets, I built the sets, I painted the sets, and I lighted the sets. So being that I was general tech director in all directions, it was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed it. And in our 4th year, the group that had been doing the booking for the actors decided that we had pretty much run our concept of the summer theater into the ground because everybody had so many other things that were going on in their lives, and they didn't have the summers off because some of them were school teachers and could get away in the summer, some weren't. And so we were closing the theater, and Dave Sterling was an artist in Estes Park. Many people know who Dave was around the area. He was an artist who came to Colorado originally from Iowa in 1916, just passing through to take a job with his brother in Washington State. He liked the area. He had never seen it before. And he went back and finished getting his degree at the Chicago Art Institute. And the following year, in 1918, he came to Colorado, back to Colorado, and started working at the Horseshoe Lodge as the entertainment director, because he was quite a ham in a lot of ways besides being an artist. He started his studio in the National Park, and I got to be very good friends with him during my theater years here. And we borrowed lots of paintings from him to dress the sets. He was very good about loaning us anything we wanted. And so I was the last one to leave our theater here in Estes Park in 1962 after we closed it. And I was just getting into my car to drive away to go back to California when Dave hollered at me down the street and asked me if I wanted to stay in Estes Park and paint. I said, well, I'm used to painting sets, so they're the size of a house every day. And I don't know, I haven't done very much easel painting. So he said, well, come and stay with me, see if you like it. If you don't like it, go back to California. So I did. My wife and I, now current wife, my first wife, and I had both been working in the theater for the 4 years. So we saw each other all summer long, but that was about it. That winter in 1962, she had gotten a teaching job in Denver. So we saw each other during the winter time that year while I was painting, trying to learn how to paint on a very small board this big instead of a whole room. And so we were able to see each other, and we had been sort of going with each other anyway. And so we got married the next season with the concept that we would stay here and be in the art business in the summers, and we would go back to California and be in the theater business in the winter. Well, we decided that wasn't going to do well, because my first year here, I did very well, and I actually made more money in 3 months selling my work here in Estes Park than both of us had made working all winter long in our other jobs in California. So we decided to go ahead and stay here. In the first several years, we didn't have anything. The town of Estes Park literally closed in the winter. All of the shops closed, the restaurants closed, the motels and hotels closed. And so there was no way to make a living in the winter. And we decided that in the second year that we were here painting, that we would start taking the names of people who said, why don't you come to our town and do a show? I said, okay, we'd love to. So we started taking names and addresses and phone numbers. And then the next fall season, we would get on the horn and start calling people and say, are you serious? Do you want to do a show for us? And everybody that we called said, yes, yes, yes. And we told them that the proviso was that whatever kind of an event they did, they could have a little private showing, they could have something in a hall, they could do whatever they wanted to do, but it had to be a black tie event. And everybody again said, yes, yes, we love to do that sort of thing. So we set out with our little trailer towed behind our car with all the paintings and sculptures, including bronzes. And we would go to one location, take all the stuff out, put it all together and set it up in a building wherever they were going to hold their event, and do a show, one night stand, get up the next day and leave and go to the next town and do that. It was just like going across country in a covered wagon practically. So we were able to travel all over the United States in those couple of years that we did that. And one year we went from Estes Park to New Jersey, New York. We would do a tour going from Estes to the south and to the East Coast. Then we would come back across the north to Estes Park. We'd reset all the stuff in the car and put new stuff in if we had sold things, which fortunately we did. and take a trip going to California the same way, going south to get there and coming back north. And one of those years, we actually did 22 one-man shows in the winter months. So we were very busy running back and forth. And we really enjoyed it. It was a lot of work, but then eventually, my wife, who had been working for the Chamber of Commerce, decided she wanted. I was painting in Dave Sterling's studio, which was in the National Park, so I had a gallery and studio there. She wanted to open our own gallery in town, so she rented a building, and I brought a bunch of paintings downtown, and she started our first gallery in town. That was in 1967. And in 1973 or 74, excuse me, we bought a piece of property down right in the middle of town and built a new commercial building for ourselves, and with my own gallery and studios in it, plus some little shops. And we were there and expanded it and ran our business. And we literally have paintings in every state in the United States and in many, many foreign countries. We've shipped stuff all over the world. We did have a customer from Iran one time, this was probably in the 70s, who bought a big painting, and we talked to him about shipping it. And he said, "No, I'll take it on the plane." I said, "That's a very large painting." It was almost 3 by 4 feet. And I said, "That's a large painting to be shuffling around," because they were touring around the country. And he said, "It doesn't make any difference. If you ship it, I'll never see it again." So we packed it up, put it in his car, and off he went. But anyway, so I'm still in business in Estes Park currently. I'm doing a lot more fine art restoration than painting myself. I actually did finish one of the paintings that is in a show that I'm having here in this building, which is the Estes Park Museum, Historical Museum. And they were kind enough to host a retrospective exhibit for me this year. And it has been in the museum now since July, and will be here until January, through January. So we're going to go tour the collection that's in that building, and you can see some of the varied techniques and styles and so on that I use. I don't stick to one thing. Everybody in the world wants you to stick to one thing, do something either abstract or impressionistic or realistic or something, and do it all your life. No, I don't do that, and I never have, and I never will. So everything is up for grabs as far as style and technique. I invent the style and technique I want the painting to exhibit before I touch it, and sometimes I have to invent my own materials and so on in order to get the effects I want. So I just do that. And it's been a very fun time. I just happened to think the other day that this month is the 70th anniversary of when I did my first professional stage set in California. So I hadn't really thought about that. It's been 70 years exactly this month. And currently I'm older than that. Anyway, I hope that gives you enough of an idea of where we're going to go with the rest of the paintings and drawings and sculptures and so on that we're going to see. Thank you for your time. Hello again. We are now in the gallery space of the Estes Park Historical Museum that they use for traveling or revolving shows. And we have, I'm not sure quite how many pieces, but I think it's 47 different pieces in the gallery. And they're all I did all of them. And so there are a lot of different styles and techniques and so on. And there are bronze sculptures, both large and small, and items made from multiple materials that don't have anything to do with bronze sculpting or hand sculpting, that sort of thing. So they're conglomerations, if you want to call it that. And there are a few pieces that are Native American based, and there are pieces that are from paintings that I've done in my travels, especially in the Caribbean and in Mexico. My wife and I have traveled thousands of miles in Mexico, spending several months almost every year down there for a long period of time. And it's a wonderful, wonderful place to paint. And the gallery space here, just for a little bit of history, was the original National Park building in Estes Park for the Rocky Mountain National Park. This was the first headquarters building. It has been moved from downtown out to the location at the back of the Estes Park Museum. So we're just going to do a quick tour around and talk about a few of the pieces that are in the collection here. The gold rabbit there was originally commissioned by CSU for the science building when they built it, the new science building on the campus. The building contains my large eagle sculpture, and which was commissioned by a different party, but they bought one of them, and they wanted something to go with it. So it was more for this naturalized setting. It didn't have a base that was static. And so I did the bunny rabbit. Actually, it's a jackrabbit, which is on the ground like the eagle is hunting for it. And that was where the original concept for that piece came from. It's gilded bronze. This painting is a bas-relief that is of the St. Francis Assisi Church in New Mexico, in just south of Taos. And it is a bas-relief, was originally carved and then coated with marble paste and eventually painted and gilded. It's the church before they did much in the way of restoration, so it's an older view of the church, so it may not look exactly the way it does now, but it gives an idea. And it was done as an Art Deco piece, so that it has a different feeling than the other bas-reliefs and the different cloisonné pieces that use this style of design in here. This piece is a piece that was done for a one-man show in Scottsdale, Arizona. And there were two of these, not this particular piece, but there were two of the American Indian dolls that they're just close to 8 feet tall. They were structured out of wood, a wood base, styrofoam to do the major carving, coated in marble paste, and with the cloisonné decorations put on. And this is the chaleco. It is the cloud kachina, is what it represents. The back of it represents the clouds. It's got a bas-relief carving of rain clouds, which is very typical of New Mexican art. This piece is called Eagle the Hunter. It is one of the first pieces, large pieces that I did and cast in bronze in the 1960s and in the early 1960s. The original was made out of paper and coated with marble paste and then We cast it in bronze. There are several of them. There's one at the Truman Museum. There's one at the Truman Library, I should say. And there's one at the Air Force Academy here in Colorado, and one at the CSU in their science building, which goes with the bunny rabbit. And it's a piece that has been very popular. It's got different mountings. Some of them are mounted vertically. This base was created for the piece that is at the Air Force Academy. So it was a very special piece. This piece is a piece that I call as part of my Sticks and Stones series. There were a group of these different sculptures done in this style for my one-man show in Scottsdale as well. These are all built out of yucca stems and volcanic rock. So the rock is very stable and it brings volume to the piece, but it's not heavy. I can pick this up by myself and move it. And all of the various and sundry parts are yucca, except for the Native American eagle feathers. The piece is based on different parts of the Native American traditions as far as colors and style and so on, just to get the general concept. It's not supposed to be anything in particular. It's a construction, so it's got lots of different kinds of pieces in it, but it's done with the yucca, the stone, handmade yarns, and gold. This is another, obviously, American Indian piece, Native American, and it's done in bronze, plated in gold and silver. It's a southwestern Indian tribe that uses the quills of the porcupines very plentifully, obviously. This one is called Running Brave and has been shown all over the country. There are only 3 copies of this particular piece because the foundry had an accident and the molds for the sculpture were destroyed, so we didn't get a run of the series, so there are only 3 of these in existence. This piece is a piece that is done in transparent colors that I make, that I invented for myself because I couldn't find materials that I wanted. And so this is done on 3 sheets of plate glass with a different painting on each side of them. So there are 6 paintings that are put together in a light box in order to give you the effect of the depth and motion in the waterfall, and to get a dramatic effect with the lighting. Let me show these 2 pieces. This is a portrait of Dave Sterling sitting out behind his studio in the national park. And this is him walking down a path. Many people have said that they like that picture because it reminds them of their grandfather having a wonderful walk through the woods. Actually, what Dave was doing was he was on his way home for a shot of bourbon. This piece is one that is done in a little different technique. It's done with poured enamel. The black enamel is put onto a polished white surface, and enamel will reach a search for its own level, so it flattens out, so it has to be painted on a flat surface so that the shapes sort of make themselves once you put the enamel on. After that's dried, then the layers of transparent color, the same kind of colors in this painting, are put on in layers, one over the top of the other, in order to get a glow of the color, because the light goes through the color, bounces off the polished white background, and comes back through the color. So it's the same kind of effect as this, with the light actually coming from behind the color. This painting of Dave Stirling is what's called a single brush technique. It's a sort of an impressionistic type of painting, so that you do the design and then you only paint one brush stroke for each spot on the painting. You don't do any painting over the top of it. This is a painting that's been shown all over the United States, including literally from New York to California. This one was done in southern Mexico, in the area of the Tehuantepec Indians. Those are native Tehuantepec characters. This one was done in Oaxaca, which is also in the southern part of Mexico. The balloon boys and the balloon people selling, or people in general selling balloons, are very prolific there, and they're just beautiful. The light is always so pretty, and this one was especially noticeable because it was at night, and so the balloons caught all the light. This is another painting of Dave Stirling, just called Wildflowers. He was a very loved wildflowers a lot. He would go out every morning and into the fields and gather wildflowers and fill all these buckets and different pots and vessels with wildflowers. This piece was done in Belize on a pier. We were getting ready to take a boat off into the lagoon, and I saw this young man came and stuck his head out the window to see what we were doing, and I just loved the way it looked. So this is called the gold bracelet. He's got obviously a very bright gold bracelet on, and it was such a great contrast to his dark skin that I just thought it really needed to get painted. This is a portrait of Isola Jones. She was a Metropolitan Opera soprano. She spent many years at the Metropolitan, and I believe she sang the most performances of Carmen that any one person had sung at that time at the Metropolitan Opera. This is a portrait of a young Mayan mother that we came across when we were hiking through the jungles in the Yucatan, in the Palenque area. And the lady had just had this little girl. She was so pleased with her baby, and she was so surprised when she saw us because there were no people around in this part of the jungle. She lived in a wonderful Mayan hut that was very, very, very picturesque and very clean and tidy. And her husband worked in the ruins there, and she allowed us to take some pictures of her and her baby. And we always traveled with a Polaroid camera in those days because there were very few cameras in Mexico. And so we took a picture of her and her new baby, and she had never seen herself before. She had never seen herself in a mirror or in a photograph, so she was very thrilled at having this image. And so was her husband, who had never seen a picture of her either. This is an impasto painting, which means it's built up texture. It's all oil paint that's built up over a period of time to get the texture, and then the image is painted on afterwards. This is called Bacchus, and we think of it as our conscience because it hangs in our house, and he changes his expression every day depending on how he thinks about you, how he feels about you that day. So he's very important to us. This one is a gentleman whose name is Severo, and he's about a little over 4 feet tall. He was an honest-to-God Mayan, and there are very few of them around. He spoke Mayan, some of the early Mayan language, which nobody in Mexico speaks anymore pretty much. And he got that trumpet from a sailor during the First World War, whose ship was parked in the bay in Belize. And he didn't speak any English, but he got somebody who could tell this guy, this sailor who was in the band on the ship. He had heard him playing this horn, and he asked if he could have the horn, not this one, but the guy's horn that he was using. And he said, no, but I have an old one that got squashed. And he said, it doesn't play too well, but you can have it. So he took this horn and taught himself how to play, and he would play Mayan songs and dance and sing in the evenings after he'd had a couple of tequilas. This one is one that was done early on in basically, it's an image that was taken in 1956 in Korea of some little Korean boys who were still wearing the hand-me-downs from the soldiers in the area. When I was in Seoul, the city had been bombed flat, and these little kids were just trying to find something fun to do, so they were out getting in trouble, and they were just so perfect, and they were so happy, even though their whole city that they lived in was bombed almost flat. And this painting is painted with a rag. It's all transparent color that I make, painted onto a white surface in layers, and each surface is put on over the whole surface each color, I should say, is put on over the whole surface, and what you don't want that color, you wipe off. So it's painted in negative, more or less. And the painting of the Mayan mother and child are painted in that same technique. It's also a technique that I designed for myself. These 4 pieces were created at different times. I started out with 2 of the images of the iris. Then I decided I was going to use this concept of the poured enamel and the transparent color for a demonstration I was doing for a big art show. And so I did another, this is the color, transparent color put on over a white surface, a white enamel surface, so that you get the light from the back of it again. And so I wanted to demonstrate the technique. So I had my drawing done on a piece of on a board, which was lying flat on a table. So I did the drawing with the enamel on it, and I put that aside, and I took another one that I had done earlier with the enamel where it's dry, and put the color on so that people could see the whole process. And so these 2 were done just because I wanted to do the flowers, and those 2 were done, and so we ended up with a quartet instead of just a couple of paintings. This one is done basically to just sort of exercise the very shallow bas-relief effect, so that the bas-relief is more the concept of the painting than the actual colors. It's also done in a combination of transparent and opaque colors. This piece is called a cloisonné technique, which is a jewelry technique. And most women have got a pair of earrings or something that's got a cloisonné pattern, or you may have inherited some kind of a pot from Japan or China or someplace where this is typically used as a technique. Most of the technique is done, it's based on what a cloisonné means is a closed space. So a wire is put on over the flat surface when you're using, say you're doing it for jewelry, use gold wire on a gold surface, and then fill in each space with enamel, and then bake it. Now people always say, is this baked? Well, no, it's not baked. It's this paint and other materials over gold and silver in order to make it have the effect, the same effect that you would get out of a piece of jewelry. This is a painting that is basically done with the brush in a very traditional style. Does have some glaze work on it, but it is done basically to get a little bit, hopefully, the drama of the early morning light hitting the peaks in the park with the elk in the foreground. This one is Yellowstone Falls, obviously, and it's also one of the paintings done on a white surface with transparent colors put on with a rag. The area in this part of the painting in the top is all done with the transparent colors, and this is transparent color as well, but it's done with a brush over the top of the other image. This is a collection of drawings that have been collected. I've done them all over the world. When we travel, we don't buy postcards, I do drawings. So there are drawings here from Europe, Mexico, Hawaii, the Caribbean, and a lot of places all around the world. And also, of course, lots of things of the Rocky Mountain National Park and the general area. So different styles and different techniques in the drawing based on what the subject is. So this is a drawing of some sculptures, some bas-reliefs in Oaxaca. And so they are trying to exhibit the flat surface. This was done in Amsterdam. This one was done in Bermuda. This was done in Assisi in Italy. This was done in New Zealand. So there are drawings done from all kinds of places. Some of them are more finished. Some are sketches, like the tree portrait here. I like to do tree portraits. Those are in Naples, Italy. This is a drawing of a building that I've done dozens and dozens of drawings of in Taos, New Mexico. It's a coffee shop that's one of our favorites, and we always go there in the morning and sit outside in the patio. So there's all kinds of stuff around. So I do a drawing every time we go there. So I have to find someplace new to do. This is just a group of hollyhocks. And this is very important because this is a gas pump. And this is the same gas pump on a different time and a different location, but it's, and this one's name is Gomez. My wife decided that the gas pumps had to have names. And it's a wonderful restaurant that has the guy that owned the restaurants collected gas pumps. And so I did a series of drawings of his gas pumps to keep up. This is a stage set of a show that I did, the sets that was done at the concert hall at the Stanley Hotel. This is another drawing of a different set for the same show. So there's something for everybody. This is the original drawing that was done from which the earlier image of the bas-relief of the St. Francis, the CC Church in Ranchos de Taos was done. So that was where the original design came from. And these are very important. Those are things I did in bars. Those are considered bathroom art. This is my studio, and where we get all the work done. Right at the moment, we're doing a restoration project for some Stations of the Cross that belong to a Catholic church locally. And the worker bees here are Melissa and Tim Phillips and Tim's wife, Frances. And we've been working on this project now for 4 years. And we've completed the restoration of a nativity scene for this church. And then we started on the Stations of the Cross, which are almost 300 years old, and we're in very bad shape. And this is what they were all just painted white enamel. And so they were broken, they were falling apart, the pieces were chipped out and so on. So we've had to take all of this old paint off, which is a job in itself because you can't remove it with paint remover. And the pieces are cast in stucco, which is one of the oldest decorative architectural materials in use. It goes clear back to the Egyptians. The Egyptians used it for the same purposes we use it for today. And so these are cast in stucco. So they are very heavy. And so usually, well, Tim can pick one up, I can't pick it up. So these are the way they look when we got them, more or less. We're still working on them. And this is one that we just finished in order to get, to settle on what our color schemes and so on were going to look like. So nobody in the church has seen those yet. And so it's going to be a surprise, we hope, when they see them. The studios, we built the studio here after we closed our gallery downtown. We built this studio in 1995, and it's gotten a lot of use in those years. Thank you, Preston, for coming to the Greig Steiner studio. And I hope you enjoyed seeing the collection and here and at the Estes Park Museum. I hope we see you again soon. It's been a great pleasure to meet you.